first got a draft notice at the middle of my junior year in high school. And they said that I'd be going into the service right away. So I didn't want to lose a half a year of high school. So I got my dad and we went before the draft board. And I told them what I wanted to do, and that when I come back, if I did come back, I would finish my senior year in high school. But 3 days after school was out, I had my notice that I'd be going into the Army in 3 days. So I was trained in Fort Knox, Kentucky, and from there I was shipped to Camp Bowie, Texas, where the 13th Armored Division was training, and that was a division that was formed in California, and they were in that camp there in the Camp Bowie training for duty overseas. And that's eventually where we went, but that's where I was assigned to. I've always thought I'd like to ride on a ship, and I did get to ride on the ship. But we got on this ship and took off for Europe. And it was smooth sailing for about halfway across the Atlantic. Halfway across the Atlantic, we ran into a fierce storm. And the ship was well loaded and I wasn't afraid of what was happening to it, but the ship got in that storm, and that storm pushed us around and made the ship go, made the bow of the ship go under the waves, and then it would raise up and bring water back all across the deck. Now, the men weren't on the deck, then that water just fell off the deck and back into the water again, but that lasted for about a day. And a lot of guys got very, very sick, but I did not get seasick, and I was happy that I didn't. Well, after we docked in Le Havre, France, we moved inward about 50 miles and came to a town called Totes, T-O-T-E-S. And there was a farmer there that had a big barn, and he said that we could stay in his barn as long as we needed to. So we all had upstairs. He had animals underneath us, and there was definitely an odor to it, but we got used to that and slept just fine. We left the farmer's barn loft. We were moving towards Germany, and we were in a convoy one day, and we were kind of up on a hillside. And all of a sudden, we heard sniper fire coming toward us and hitting some of the artillery, the half tracks that we're in. I was in a half track, and we finally spotted where he was. He was in a ditch down below us, but we wasn't right sure where he was, but we remembered there was a horse in a lot next door to that piece of land, and that horse jumped when the sniper started firing. So we remembered that, and that's where we started firing. And it didn't take long till we saw a white flag come up, and so he was captured, but I don't know what happened to him. And another time we were going further, and was in Germany at this time, and we were in a mountainous area, and I was on the back of a tank, and there was a tank in front of us that had soldiers on it. And the bad thing about that was that the engine made such roaring noise that you couldn't hear fire if it was coming toward you. But anyhow, we had stopped to take a break, and on the hill up above us, there was a sniper, and he started firing at us. So we saw where that was coming from, so everybody started firing up that way, and it wasn't long till a soldier came out of his placement on a motorcycle and turned to go up the hill, and everybody was firing at him, and he was hit, and I'm sure was killed. But the motorcycle made a U-turn and come all the way back down that hill and crashed where our tanks were. And the driver of the tank in front of us turned his tank around and ran over his head. And from there we moved on into Germany. Well, we reached Seaburg. It was a town that was being bombed by our artillery, and we could look up and see the projectiles going across. And there was a stream of water there, and our captain told us all to strip off and jump in the water and get wet and come back out and soap up and jump in the water again and rinse off while we had a chance. So that's what we did. We jumped in the water, but that water was so cold, I couldn't stand it. And I got out as quick as I could and put my clothes back on. I thought I'll just wear my stinky clothes a little while longer. Our unit was had stopped for a break, and we were all in half tracks. And a half track, in case you don't know what that is like a truck. It has two front wheels on it like a truck, but the rear part of it has tracks on each side like a tank has. And the bed of it would hold a number of soldiers easily. So we were a bunch of soldiers in the half track that I was in, and all of a sudden we could hear the screaming sound of 88 projectile coming in. And the projectile did hit right in the center of the camp where we were, and it raised the rear of that half track off the ground, and that scared us pretty good. But in the meantime, I was looking out at a truck that was parked nearby, and another soldier was climbing the ladder to get in his truck, and he was hit in the back with some of that shrapnel, and he just fell backwards on the ground. But after that, we just took off because we were trying to get out of fire. Another time we had a dud come in was we were in this small town, and the commander called myself and a buddy to go down a certain street to see if we could find any enemies, or see what we could find. So we took off walking, and it was a paved street, and it had sidewalks, and we had right on the left we came to a building. It was a 2-story building, and next to it was a vacant lot. And then next to it was another 2-story building. Well, that 88 projectile come in and hit the building in front of us and did not explode, but it went into the building and then rolled out two concrete steps on the sidewalk in front of us. And my buddy reached down and touched it, and he says, "That thing is hot." So we took off running as fast as we could. And when we got to safety, we looked back around, and it never did go off. And it was a dud, I'm sure. And I've read stories after that about how the German army had slave labor, and the German soldiers like to take breaks. So when they'd take a break, these people fixing those artillery, they would fix it so that the projectile wouldn't explode when it hit. And they found a lot of duds around us, so they did their part in the war. That was about the time that General George S. Patton took charge of the 13th Armored Division, and we just joined his army. And at that time, we made the longest march in history with all of our artillery and heavy trucks and heavy guns and everything. It was over 200 miles, and we ended up in southern Germany. So we had a little break there, and we got to We got to go up on a mountain and see Hitler's mountain retreat. And there's nothing left of it because the British Army had bombed it, and it was just crumbly, just torn all to pieces. But it was thrilled to stand in the window where we had seen Hitler pictured, and but that was good. We were glad to see that. After they announced the war was over in Europe, we were real happy. We thought maybe we would get to go home, and word came down that we were scheduled to go direct to the Pacific from the Atlantic and be a part of the invasion of Japan. And at that time, the 13th Army Division was supposed to be one of the spearhead groups to land in southern Japan. And we were afraid to do that, and we were really scared then. But about a week later, another message came through that we had been decided that we would get a furlough through the United States, and we did. I got a 30-day furlough through the United States, and that's when the 2 atomic bombs were dropped on Japan. Of course, that ended that threat. And we were happy campers. Well, that fall I did enter high school and finish my senior year, and my girlfriend and I were nominated and elected to be king and queen of the campus that year. So that was kind of a reward for us. We enjoyed that very much.